The air inside the grand hall was thick with anticipation, the murmurs of the gathered crowd swelling into a rising current of expectation. Lira stepped forward, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and resolve. Above them, the glass sphere shimmered faintly, the cracks near her home glowing with a subtle, pulsing light. This was no longer just a secret her identity, as the heir to the sphere's magic was a beacon now. And with that came both hope and danger. City leaders, rebels, and commoners alike had converged in this clandestine meeting, their faces lit by flickering lanterns and the ethereal glow of the glass fissures. Lyra's voice, steady and clear, cut through the din. "I stand before you not just as a girl from the lower tiers, but as the inheritor of the sphere's power. Together, we can shape the future of our city, not as prisoners within glass, but as masters of our destiny." A ripple of cheers swept through the crowd, but beneath the fervor lurked wary glances and whispered doubts. The ruling elite would not relinquish control without a fight. Weeks earlier, in the opulent chambers of the upper city, Lady Vasira regarded the news with a cold, calculating gaze. Draped in silks that caught the light like shards of crystal, she paced the marble floor, the chandeliers above casting fractured reflections that danced like ghosts. When Lira was summoned to meet her, the tension was palpable. "You carry a heavy burden, child," Lady Vasira said, her voice smooth but edged with steel. "The sphere's magic is not a toy for the untrained. To claim it is to invite chaos, and we will not allow the city to fracture under your recklessness." Lira met her gaze steadily. "The city is already fracturing, Lady Vasira. Holding on to power will only hasten its fall." The noblewoman's smile was thin and sharp. "Then choose your allies wisely, lest you become the very thing you seek to overthrow." Away from the glittering halls, in the damp, shadowed catacombs beneath the city, a different kind of negotiation took place. Kalen, the enigmatic envoy from a rival faction, waited in the flickering torchlight. His eyes, dark and unreadable, studied Lira as they spoke in hushed tones. "Your inheritance is both a gift and a curse," Kalon warned. "Many will seek to claim it for their own ends. Trust is a fragile thing here." Lira nodded, absorbing the gravity of his words. "Then I must be stronger than they expect, and wiser." As dawn broke, she found herself alone atop the city's highest tower. The endless storm roared beneath the glass sphere, a tempest of fury and wild energy that mirrored the turmoil within the city and within her. The wind whipped her hair, carrying with it the scent of rain and ozone. In that moment of solitude, Lira felt the weight of her role settle upon her shoulders. The alliances she forged would be fragile, the threats many, but the power she wielded was undeniable. To protect the city and its people, she would have to navigate treacherous waters and confront enemies, both visible and hidden. Her journey was far from over. The glass was cracking, and so was the old order. What would emerge from the shards was yet to be seen, but Lira was determined to shape it. And as the storm raged on, so did the fight for the future of the Glassbound. The day after her public declaration, Lira found herself walking through the winding streets of the lower city, the glow from the fissures in the sphere above casting eerie patterns on the cobblestones. The people she passed looked at her with a mix of awe and hope. Mothers whispered her name to their children. Merchants paused their haggling to steal glances. She was no longer just an orphan girl, she was a symbol. Yet, the weight of that symbol pressed heavily. Every step she took was shadowed by the knowledge that enemies lurked in every corner, that the fragile alliances she sought to build could shatter with a single misstep. That evening, Eamon met her in a quiet tavern nestled beneath the glass dome. His face was grim, the usual fire in his eyes tempered by worry. "The ruling council is mobilizing," he said, lowering his voice. "They see you as a threatened prize. We need to strengthen our ranks, but trust is thin." Lira nodded, her gaze steady. "Then we must be smarter. We'll reach out to those still undecided, those who fear the storm as much as we do." Their plan was risky, but necessary. The rebellion could not survive on hope and defiance alone. It required strategy and unity. Over the next days, Lira and Eamon traveled through secret meeting places, gathering support from reluctant factions. They brokered uneasy truces and forged bonds with those who had once been enemies. Each alliance was a fragile thread in a tapestry of rebellion and revolution. One such meeting brought them face to face again with Kalen. His presence was unsettling, but his offer sincere. "There is power in the storm," he said cryptically, "and power in the glass. Together, they can be wielded to remake this city or destroy it." Lyra's fingers brushed the pendant she wore, a shard of the sphere's glass, warm with magic. "Then we must learn to wield it before the storm consumes us all." But with every alliance formed, whispers of betrayal followed. Lady Visera's agents prowled the city, seeking to undermine the fragile unity. Shadows lengthened and danger closed in. Yet Lira remained unbowed. At every turn, she reminded herself that the future of the Glassbound rested not just on magic or strength, but on the courage to stand firm when all seemed lost. As night fell over the floating city, the cracks in the sphere pulsed softly, a heartbeat of light and promise. And somewhere deep within, the power of the glass-bound air stirred, ready to face the storm ahead. The city was watching, the factions were watching, and Lira was ready to lead. End of. The boundless storm churned below the floating city of Glassbound, its thunderous roars muffled by the thick glass dome that held the city aloft. Lira stood at the edge of the glass sphere's highest terrace, the cold wind pressing against her like a living force, carrying with it a sound she had only begun to understand: whisper, soft and elusive, threading through the crystalline surface like a secret breath, the storm's voice. For days, since the first faint tremors rippled through the glass, Lira had felt the shifting moods of the tempest below. Now, those sensations had grown into something coherent, a pattern of murmurs that danced on the edge of her senses. It was as if the storm sought to communicate, its endless fury becoming a language she was learning to decipher. She closed her eyes, pressing a hand to the cool glass. The murmurs coalesced into fragile phrases, warnings, echoes of ancient memories and veiled prophecies. A tremor coursed beneath her palm, and she could almost see the storm's restless spirit weaving through the tempestuous clouds, calling out in a tongue older than the city itself. "Lira," a voice called softly behind her. She turned to see Eamon, his face etched with concern and curiosity. "You've been out here for hours. What did you hear?" She hesitated, searching for words that could capture the intangible. "The storm, it speaks. Not in words we know, but in feelings, rhythms. It's warning us. Something is coming." Eamon stepped closer, eyes scanning the roiling clouds beneath. "If the storm is restless, then the city isn't safe." Together, they retreated to the rebel hideout, a dimly lit alcove carved into the lower glass levels. There, with flickering lanterns casting long shadows, Lira demonstrated her newfound ability. She placed her palm on a shard of the sphere, concentrating until the storm's whispers grew clearer, revealing visions that shimmered like fractured glass in her mind. Images of the city trembling, of the glass fracturing further, and of a shadowy force rising from the depths of the storm unfolded before her. The revelation was a double-edged sword, hope mingled with dread, knowledge paired with the weight of impending catastrophe. "We must prepare," Lira said, voice steady despite the turmoil within. "The storm's warning is clear. The sphere's magic is tied to the tempest, and if it breaks free, we could lose everything." Iman nodded, resolve hardening his features. "Then we fight, not just for freedom, but for survival." That night, alone in her small quarters, Lira sought solace in the storm's whispers once more. She sat cross-legged by a window, the city's lights flickering through the glass, and let the murmurs wash over her. With closed eyes, she saw the city's creators, the ancient artisans and mages who had forged the sphere and bound it to the storm. Their intentions had been noble, but the cost was greater than anyone had imagined. The storm was not just a force of destruction, but a guardian of secrets, a living memory etched into the glass itself. It watched, waited, and now it called out, urging Lira to choose a path that could save or doom Glassbound. Suddenly, a violent tremor shook the sphere, sending a cascade of tiny fractures shimmering across the glass. The storm's whisper rose into a crescendo, a roar carried through the crystalline walls. Lira's heart pounded as she sprang to her feet, racing through the city's labyrinthine streets toward the council chambers. The leaders, cloaked in their finery and bearing the weight of centuries-old traditions, listened in stunned silence as Lira relayed the storm's message and the urgency it demanded. "The sphere is weakening," she warned. "If we do not act, the storm will break through. We must unite before it's too late." Some scoffed, blinded by pride and fear, but others glimpsed the truth in her eyes. The fragile peace that held the city together trembled under the weight of unseen forces. As Lira left the chamber, her gaze lifted once more to the storm's swirling depths. The whispers had grown louder, the stakes higher. In that moment, she understood that her journey was entwined not only with the glass and the city, but with the very heart of the tempest below. The storm's whisper was a call to destiny, a call she could no longer ignore. Outside, the wind howled, and the city held its breath. The chamber was heavy with the scent of burning beeswax, the flickering candlelight casting wavering shadows against the polished glass walls of the council room. Outside, the endless storm grumbled like a restless beast beneath the floating city, its fury muted but ever present. Within these walls, however, a different tempest brewed, one of voices raised in frustration. Eyes narrowed with distrust, and the fragile threads of alliance strained perilously. Lira stood at the center, her gaze steady despite the rising clamor. Around the polished oak table sat the leaders of the newly formed coalition, a precarious assembly of former rebels, nobles, and workers united by a shared desire to rebuild the city after the glass sphere's fractures had shaken their world. Yet what held them together was thinner than the crystal walls encasing them. Meris, the noble-born representative, leaned forward, her silver-blonde hair catching the light like a shard of ice. "The resources must be allocated with prudence," she said, voice cool but firm. "We cannot squander what little stability we have on reckless projects. The upper districts require protection. Their preservation is vital." Across from her, Tovik's broad frame tensed. His soot-streaked face was set in a scowl, eyes blazing with indignation. Protection for the upper districts. And what of the workers' quarters? The glass cracks there first, and it is the people below who suffer most. We demand equal shares, or this alliance is meaningless. Aaron's sharp eyes darted between the two as he whispered urgently to Lira. "The tempers will boil over if we don't act soon." Lira took a deep breath, stepping forward to address the room, "We all bear wounds from the past," she began, voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of urgency. "But our future depends on standing together, not apart. The cracks in the glass are a symbol of our city, yes, but also of our society. If we let these fractures spread unchecked among ourselves, the sphere will be the least of our worries." Maris folded her arms, skepticism etched across her features. "Idealism is admirable, Lira, but it won't feed the hungry or mend shattered homes." "Nor will division," Lira replied, eyes meeting Maris's with steady resolve. "We must find a way to share the burdens and the blessings." Saren, the mediator, stepped forward with a gentle voice. "Perhaps we should focus on immediate needs repair efforts, prioritized by urgency, while a council committee develops a fair allocation plan. Patience and cooperation will serve better than demands and ultimatums." Tovik's jaw clenched, but he nodded slowly, the fire in his gaze tempered by a flicker of reluctant agreement. The debate continued, voices occasionally rising, but Lira's presence provided a channel through which the discord flowed without breaking the fragile vessel of their alliance. Outside the chamber, the storm's distant rumble seemed to echo the unrest within. In a quiet corridor, Unan and Seren exchanged low words. "We can't afford another fracture," Unan said grimly. "The people are watching. Hope is fragile. If this alliance crumbles, chaos will follow." "And the storm waits," Seren added, eyes shadowed. "It will exploit every weakness." As the meeting adjourned, Tovik pushed open the heavy door and strode into the rain-drenched streets beneath the glass dome. The cold wind bittered his skin, carrying the scent of wet stone and ozone. His fists clenched at his sides, the weight of responsibility and anger pressing down on him. The alliance was tenuous, and his patience thinner still. The cracks in the glass above mirrored the fractures in the city's newfound unity. Lira knew the path ahead would demand more than words. It would require sacrifice, trust, and perhaps a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. The city held its breath, balanced precariously between hope and ruin. As the storm whispered its eternal warnings, Lira's thoughts turned inward. Could she hold the coalition together long enough to see the city healed? Or would the alliance shatter, plunging Glassbound into deeper darkness? The weight of the question settled heavy on her heart as she prepared to face the trials yet to come. The glass above gleamed faintly in the gathering dawn, a fragile beacon promising either salvation or collapse. And within its fragile walls, the battle for unity had only just begun. Outside, the first rays of sun pierced the storm clouds, casting fractured beams through the glass dome. But within the council chamber, fractures ran deeper than light could reach. The alliance was a living thing, beautiful, fragile, and dangerously poised on the edge of breaking. Lira's journey was far from over. The ancient library of the floating city was a sanctum of forgotten knowledge, nestled deep within the upper tiers where the ruling elite kept their secrets wrapped in layers of magic and glass. Tonight, however, the usually silent halls vibrated with a different energy, a mixture of fear, hope, and an electric anticipation that seemed to seep from the very walls. Lira stood before a towering shelf, her fingers tracing the delicate edges of glass scrolls that glimmered faintly in the dim light. Eldrick, the seer she had been reluctantly drawn to, carefully unrolled one of the fragile texts. His pale blue eyes, clouded with years of visions, scanned the ancient script etched in runes that shimmered like fractured light. "This," Eldrick began, his voice low and reverent, "is the Glassblade prophecy. It speaks of one bound by glass, whose power will either shatter the sphere or forge it anew." Lira's breath caught. She had always felt the weight of her inheritance pressing upon her shoulders, But to hear it spoken aloud in such final terms was another matter entirely. "Tell me everything," she demanded, her voice firm despite the tremor she felt inside. Eldric's gaze met hers, unwavering. The prophecy was crafted by the sphere's creators, a warning and a guide. It tells of a time when the sphere, their greatest creation and prison, would be at the mercy of a single soul. That soul you will face a choice to break the glass and free the city, risking chaos and ruin, or to bind it tighter, shaping the future according to their will. A heavy silence fell between them, broken only by the faint crackling of magical energy humming through the room. "The glass blade," Eldric continued, "is the symbol of this power, magical force capable of cutting through the very fabric of the sphere. It is said to be both a weapon and a key." Lira's mind raced. The shards of glass she had seen shimmering around her during moments of power, the fissures spreading across the sphere, were more than just cracks. They were echoes of this prophecy, signs of a destiny unfolding. As the weight of the revelation settled, a sudden sharp knock echoed through the chamber. The heavy door swung open to reveal Councillor Valen, his expression as cold and sharp as the glass that encased their city. "Lira," he said, stepping inside with measured grace, "I trust Eldric has been sharing the Council's concerns." Her eyes narrowed. "What concerns?" "The prophecy, of course. It speaks of destruction as well as salvation. The ruling elite cannot ignore the threat you pose, whether you choose to lead or to rebel." His words dripped with warning, but beneath the surface, Lira detected a flicker of fear. "I do not seek to destroy," she replied steadily, "but I will not be bound by fear or control." Valen's gaze hardened. "Power such as yours does not come without cost. Remember that." Before the councillor could press further, Myra slipped into the room, her presence a steadying force. "We need to prepare, Lira. The city is changing, and the people are watching." Outside, the endless storm rumbled ominously, its fury mirrored by the fractures spreading through the glass dome. The prophecy was no longer a distant whisper, it was a storm gathering strength within Lira herself. Later that night, beneath the fractured glow of the sphere's cracks, Lira and Mira stood atop one of the city's highest spires. The glass beneath their feet shimmered, reflecting the tempestuous sky and the fragile hope resting on their shoulders. "What if the prophecy is wrong?" Mira asked quietly. "What if you don't have to choose destruction or control?" Lira looked out over the city, the myriad lights flickering like stars caught in glass. "Then we'll find another way, because if I don't, no one else will." A sudden surge of energy coursed through her veins. The shards of glass around her began to pulse and dance, resonating with her magic. She raised her hands, and the glass responded, cutting, reshaping, bending to her will. In that moment, the glass blade prophecy was not a chain, but a catalyst. A spark igniting the fate of the city and the soul who carried its future. Yet, as power surged, so too did the danger. The choices ahead were as sharp and fragile as the glass itself, and the path Lira would take remained veiled in the shifting shadows of prophecy. The city held its breath, teetering on the edge of dawn or destruction, as the glass blade's edge gleamed in the hands of its destined bearer. The crystalline chamber shimmered softly around Lira as she stepped inside, the pale blue light reflecting off the smooth glass walls, creating an illusion of being submerged beneath a restless sea. The air was thick with magic, a tangible hum that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. Master Vale stood at the center, his robes billowing slightly despite the stillness, his eyes piercing yet patient. "Focus," he instructed, his voice a calm anchor amid the swirling energies. "Feel the sphere's will within you. This inheritance is not merely power, it is a covenant." You must learn to listen before you command. Lira inhaled deeply, her gaze locking onto the glowing sigils etched into the floor beneath her feet. The weight of her lineage settled on her shoulders like a mantle woven from threads of glass and storm. She closed her eyes, sensing the faint tremble beneath the city, the pulse of trapped magic yearning for release. "Begin," Vale urged. Tentatively, Lira extended her hands, palms glowing with a soft light that quickly intensified. She imagined the glass sphere surrounding the city, its flawless surface now marred by cracks she had forged. Slowly, she reached out with her magic, weaving delicate threads of light that shimmered like strands of spun crystal. The energy was wild, untamed, a tempest bound in fragile form. "Not like that," Vale interrupted, stepping closer. "You must coax the magic, not force it. The sphere's power is both a prison and a protector. You are the key and the lock." Frustration flared inside Lira. She clenched her fists, feeling the raw energy surge uncontrollably. Suddenly, shards of luminous glass spiraled around her, spinning faster and faster, the chamber echoing with a sharp, crystalline resonance. Her breath hitched as the shards threatened to break free, slashing the air with a deadly edge. "Control," Vale commanded sharply. With a desperate cry, Lira summoned her will, twisting the shards into a fragile, glowing construct. A miniature lattice of shimmering glass suspended in mid-air. The chamber stilled, the energy settling into a delicate balance. She collapsed to her knees, sweat soaking her brow. Master Vale nodded, a faint smile breaking his stern demeanor. "Well done, but this is only the beginning." The door to the chamber hissed open, and Ellen entered, her breath ragged. "Lira," she said urgently, "the city's unrest grows. The rebellion stirs with new fervor. We don't have much time." Lira's eyes widened, the weight of her training clashing with the urgent demands of the world outside. She rose, steadied by the knowledge that her mastery of the sphere's magic was not just a personal trial, but a beacon for those who looked to her for hope. From a shadowed balcony above, Councillor Mareth watched silently. Her cold green eyes gleamed with calculated interest as she observed Lira's collapse from exhaustion. The girl's power was undeniable, but so too was the danger she represented. Mareth's fingers brushed the edge of a silver pendant, a token of authority and threat. Outside, the city trembled, a fragile balance on the edge of shattering. Lira's inheritance was rekindled, but with it came the realization that every step forward exacted a toll, and the path ahead was fraught with peril. "You must choose," Vale's voice echoed softly as Lira prepared to face the trials yet to come. "Master this power, or be consumed by it." Lira's gaze hardened. The inheritance was hers, flawed, luminous, and bound to the fate of the city. As the chamber's light dimmed into twilight hues, she knew the true trial was only beginning. Her hands trembled slightly as she whispered to herself, "I will not let this be my end." And somewhere beyond the glass, the endless storm raged on, waiting.